During the Middle Ages of Europe, a period which lasted from 600 CE to 1450 CE, there were four main points of focus. These four are the coronation of Charlemagne in 800 CE, through the Crusades, which lasted from 1095 through 1291 CE, the rise of feudalism, and the Black Death, which occurred from 1347 to 1351 CE. Charlemagne was the king of the Franks, king of the Lombards, and the emperor of the Carolingian Empire. Charlemagne, a devout Christian, followed the policy of his father, Pepin the Younger, a policy of protecting the church and the papacy. In 778, Charlemagne began his incursion of the sole Islamic nation in Europe, Muslim Spain's Al-Andalus. During his rule, Charlemagne expanded his territory into much of Western and Central Europe. He absorbed the Bavarians, the Saxons, the Lombards, and groups of European Muslims. At the time of the coronation by Pope Leo III in 800 CE, Charlemagne's empire encompassed parts of present-day Spain, France, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, Austria, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Italy. Charlemagne also moved the capital of the city of Aachen, situated in present-day Germany. Charlemagne's unification of Europe heavily influenced many world leaders following him, especially Cesare Borgia and Napoleon Bonaparte. The Crusades were one of the most influential parts of medieval Europe. They are a brutal part of Christian history, especially since they were blessed by Pope Urbanus II. The Crusades began with Byzantine Emperor Alexios I requesting military assistance and protection from the Ottomans from Pope Urbanus II. Instead of defending the Byzantines, the Catholic armies attempted to capture Jerusalem from the Muslims. The First Crusade began in 1095 and ended in 1099. The First Crusaders captured Jerusalem in 1099, thus ending the First Crusade. There they formed the Crusader States. However, in 1187, Saladin and the Muslims reconquered Jerusalem, thus prompting the Third Crusade. Richard the Lionheart I of England, along with King Augustus of France and Frederick Barbarossa, began the European effort of the Third Crusade. Even though the European coalition had a large army, the Third Crusade ended without a siege of Jerusalem. In 1202, the Fourth Crusade began. When the Crusaders sacked Byzantium, or Constantinople, the Great Schism finally broke through. The Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, Eighth, and Ninth Crusades all followed without success of conquering Jerusalem from the Muslims. The rise of feudalism was also influential in Europe. In Europe, this diagram is helpful at demonstrating feudalism. The lord is at the top, and then come his vassals, followed by the knights for military protection, and lastly the ones that work the land, the serfs. The lord typically built his personal estate or his castle, sometimes better known as manor, at the center of his territory. Throughout Europe, there are hundreds of castles left by these medieval lords. Even though the castles were usually inhabited by the lord, vassals would build lesser castles, basically smaller manors. In Europe, most of these feudal systems built churches in addition to castles. In order to rule over the serfs, the lord and his vassals used the power of the knights. These knights perfected the weapons of their time. They used clubs, maces, lances, crossbows, swords, axes, and various other weapons. The knights constantly fought for honor in various tournaments, the most famous tournament being the joust. The serfs, the largest percentage of the feudal population, just farmed the land in exchange for seed and residence. This feudalist system influenced Ethiopia and the antebellum South of the United States of America. The Black Death, formerly known as the bubonic plague, was the epidemic of Ebola in Europe from 1347 to 1351. During the bubonic plague, 1/3 of the European population perished. Ebola came from rats that arrived from Chinese merchant ships. During the Black Death, European medicine evolved from shamanistic and animistic to more anatomically based modern medicine. Doctors from the Black Death were the ancestors of modern physicians. The doctors used primitive, beak-like masks to prevent the transmission of the Ebola pathogens. Even though the pandemic was short-lived, its spread was unbelievable. The bubonic plagues spread throughout the entire continent of Europe in a matter of 4 years. In total, 130 million people died. It took 150 years for the population of Europe to fully recover from this epidemic disaster. Without these events during the age of medieval Europe, our world would not be the same. Many things would be different, and unfortunately, many advancements would not have occurred.